remember the simple, budget-friendly meals our grandparents swore by? Dishes that stretched every dollar and still brought the family together? These were the recipes that filled pantries and plates without fuss, turning humble ingredients into hearty, comforting meals. From weeknight casseroles to sweet treats made from pantry staples, they were quick, practical, and surprisingly delicious. Today, most of these dirt-cheap classics have vanished from our kitchens, but their flavors and stories are waiting to be rediscovered. Tuna noodle casserole. Tuna noodle casserole is the kind of dish that instantly transports you back to mid-century American kitchens, where practicality met comfort in the most unassuming way. Born in the 1950s, this humble casserole became a staple in suburban homes, a budget-friendly solution for busy families looking to stretch a dollar without sacrificing a hearty meal. During an era when canned goods and packaged foods were skyrocketing in popularity, the combination of tuna, noodles, and a creamy sauce felt modern, convenient, and downright clever. The ingredients were simple, pantry-friendly, and forgiving. Elbow macaroni, canned tuna, cream of mushroom soup, a splash of milk, and a sprinkling of breadcrumbs or grated cheese for the top. Sometimes a handful of frozen peas or sliced onions would sneak in, depending on what the family had on hand. The beauty of tuna noodle casserole wasn't just its thriftiness, it was its adaptability. Leftover vegetables or bits of cooked meat could easily be folded in, making it a canvas for resourcefulness during an era when nothing went to waste. Preparation was straightforward, almost ritualistic in its simplicity. Cook the noodles, mix them with tuna and creamy sauce, pour everything into a baking dish, top with crumbs or cheese, and bake until golden and bubbling. The kitchen would fill with the warm, savory aroma of nostalgia, and the whole family could gather around a steaming dish that felt like a hug in casserole form. Today, tuna noodle casserole may seem quaint or even a little kitschy, overshadowed by the convenience of frozen meals and the Instagram-ready glow of modern pasta bakes. Yet there's something undeniably charming about it, a reminder that a satisfying meal doesn't require a long list of exotic ingredients. In an age of meal kits and TikTok cooking hacks, this simple, frugal dish still whispers a story of family, practicality, and the quiet ingenuity of mid-century America, proving that comfort doesn't need to come with a high price tag. Creamed chipped beef on toast, SOS. Creamed chipped beef on toast, affectionately and sometimes jokingly known as SOS, is a dish that carries both history and hearty nostalgia in every creamy bite. Its roots trace back to the military kitchens of the early 20th century, where it became a staple during World War I and II, feeding hungry soldiers with inexpensive, shelf-stable ingredients. Back home, it migrated into American kitchens during the Depression and post-war years, celebrated for its simplicity, affordability, and surprisingly comforting flavor. At its core, SOS is deceptively simple. Dried or canned chipped beef, a generous pat of butter, a sprinkling of flour to thicken, milk to create the creamy base, and a pinch of black pepper. Spread over buttered toast, it transforms basic pantry staples into a filling meal. The beauty of the dish lay not just in its thriftiness, but in its flexibility. A bit of leftover meat, a splash of milk from the fridge, even a dash of nutmeg or mustard could elevate the humble sauce, making it feel slightly indulgent in otherwise lean times. Preparation is straightforward. Melt the butter in a pan, sprinkle in flour to make a roux, whisk in milk until smooth and creamy, then stir in the chipped beef and season to taste. Toast slices of bread until golden, pour the creamy mixture over the top, and serve immediately while the aroma fills the kitchen with the warm scent of comfort and sustenance. Modern diners might wrinkle their noses at SOS, viewing it as a relic of rationed kitchens or a culinary punchline. Yet for those who grew up with it, or who've rediscovered it in a throwback cookbook, it embodies a quiet ingenuity, turning pantry scraps into something substantial and satisfying. In an era dominated by meal kits, fast food, and online recipe trends, creamed chipped beef on toast reminds us that ingenuity and frugality in the kitchen can be just as delicious as any fancy creation, carrying the stories of resilience and resourcefulness from generations past. Slumgullion. Slumgullion is one of those dishes that might make modern eaters raise an eyebrow, but in mid-century America, it was a symbol of thrift, ingenuity, and making do with whatever was on hand. Often described as a hearty stew or hash, slumgullion was popular during the Great Depression and in rural households where nothing went to waste. Leftover meat, potatoes, onions, and whatever vegetables lingered in the pantry or garden were chopped, mixed, and simmered together, creating a warm, filling dish that could stretch to feed an entire family. The ingredients were intentionally flexible. A chunk of beef or a few slices of leftover ham might form the base, while potatoes, sometimes even mashed from the night before, added substance. Onions, carrots, and occasional bits of corn or peas provided texture and a touch of sweetness. Some cooks thickened the mixture with a spoonful of flour or leftover breadcrumbs, transforming what could have been a simple stew into a creamy, cohesive meal. The recipe had no rigid rules. It thrived on creativity and resourcefulness, reflecting a time when frugality wasn't just practical, it was necessary. Preparation was simple but satisfying. Chop and brown the meat, add vegetables and liquid, simmer gently and allow the flavors to meld. The kitchen would fill with a savory, hearty aroma, signaling a meal that was both nourishing and unpretentious. Served hot, slumgullion was often enjoyed straight from the pot, or sometimes over a slice of bread for extra sustenance. Today, the name itself might sound unappetizing, and the dish is largely forgotten outside of nostalgic cookbooks or family lore. Yet slumgullion remains a testament to the ingenuity of home cooks in tough times. In a modern world of pre-packaged convenience foods and social media perfect plating, it reminds us that comfort, creativity, and resourcefulness can turn the humblest ingredients into something unexpectedly satisfying, a legacy of frugality and family-centered cooking that deserves a second look. Scalloped potatoes. Scalloped potatoes are the ultimate example of frugal elegance, a dish that manages to feel indulgent while using the simplest ingredients. Popularized in mid-20th century American kitchens, especially during the 1940s and 50s, this creamy, layered potato bake became a staple on family tables across the country. It thrived in an era when rationing and tight budgets demanded that cooks stretch their resources, yet still wanted meals that felt comforting and satisfying. At its heart, scalloped potatoes are just that. Thinly sliced potatoes baked in a creamy sauce until tender and bubbling. Traditionally, the sauce was a simple combination of butter, flour, and milk, sometimes with a dash of salt and pepper to taste. A sprinkling of cheese, if available, could top the dish, creating a golden, slightly crisp crust. The beauty of the recipe lies in its adaptability. Leftover potatoes, onions, or even a handful of chopped vegetables could easily find a place between the layers, making each version slightly different but always hearty. Preparation is straightforward but methodical. Slice the potatoes evenly. Prepare a basic white sauce or cream mixture. Layer the potatoes in a buttered baking dish. Pour the sauce over them and bake slowly until tender. The kitchen fills with a comforting aroma of milk, butter, and soft, roasting potatoes, a scent that can instantly evoke childhood memories or family dinners. Though today it may seem simple compared to fancy gratins or restaurant-style potato dishes, Scalloped potatoes carry a nostalgic charm. In the age of microwavable sides and instant gratines, this humble casserole reminds us of the slow, satisfying joy of cooking with intention and care. Its creamy layers and golden top are a small celebration of resourcefulness, proving that even the simplest ingredients, handled with thought and patience, can create something delicious, comforting, and enduring. Goulash. American goulash is a dish that wears its practicality proudly. A one-pot wonder that fed families on a dime while still feeling hearty and satisfying. Popular in mid-20th century kitchens, particularly during the Depression and post-war years, it became a favorite for its simplicity, affordability, and ability to stretch modest ingredients into a meal that could feed a crowd. Unlike its Hungarian namesake, American goulash leaned into comfort and convenience rather than intricate spice blends, becoming a symbol of resourcefulness in the home kitchen. At its core, American goulash combines elbow macaroni, ground beef or other inexpensive meats, canned tomatoes, and a touch of onion or bell pepper when available. Seasonings were minimal: salt, pepper, and perhaps a dash of paprika or Worcestershire sauce. But the dish's charm lay in its flexibility. Leftover vegetables could be stirred in, a bit of cheese sprinkled on top, or a dash of ketchup added for sweetness. It was a recipe that invited creativity without demanding culinary sophistication. Preparation was forgiving. Brown the meat, sauté the vegetables if using, add tomatoes and seasonings, stir in cooked macaroni, and allow the flavors to meld into a thick, comforting mixture. The aroma of simmering tomatoes and browned meat would fill the kitchen, a signal that a meal both filling and inexpensive was ready to serve. Today, American goulash might be overshadowed by trendy pasta dishes or Instagram-ready casseroles, but it remains a nostalgic favorite for many. Its charm lies not in flashy presentation, but in its history. A dish born of frugality, adaptability, and the desire to feed a family with what was on hand. In a modern world of pre-packaged convenience meals, it reminds us that simplicity, thrift, and a little imagination can produce something hearty, satisfying, and deeply comforting, a true testament to the resilience of home cooks past and present. Liver and onions. Liver and onions is one of those dishes that instantly divides a room. Either you grew up loving it, or you remember pushing it around your plate, hoping the dog might help you out. But for much of the 20th century, this was not only a beloved staple, but also a frugal, nutritional powerhouse. During the Depression, World War II, and the lean post-war years, families often turned to liver as a cheap source of protein and iron. It was inexpensive, widely available, and packed with nutrients at a time when vitamins were more likely to come from dinner than a pill bottle. The ingredients couldn't be simpler: beef or calf's liver, onions, a bit of flour, butter or lard for frying, and a dash of seasoning. Many households added a splash of milk to soak the liver beforehand, said to mellow out its strong flavor and make it more tender. The onions, sliced thin and sautéed until golden and sweet, were the perfect foil to the richness of the liver, turning what might have been an acquired taste into something balanced and comforting. Preparation was straightforward but required a cook's attention. Dredge the liver lightly in flour, sear it quickly in hot fat, and finish it with caramelized onions piled high on top. The sizzle in the pan and the deep, savory aroma were hallmarks of weeknight dinners across America. Served with mashed potatoes or a thick slice of bread, it was the kind of meal that stuck to your ribs and kept you going. Today, liver and onions have largely disappeared from family tables, dismissed as old-fashioned or too bold for modern palates. Yet, for those who remember it fondly, The dish speaks of resilience, thrift, and the no-nonsense cooking of an earlier time. In an age when organ meats are being rediscovered as nose-to-tail dining trends, perhaps this humble classic deserves a second chance, reminding us that frugality and flavor can go hand in hand. Meatloaf surprise. Meatloaf surprise is the kind of dish that perfectly embodies mid-century American ingenuity. A humble meal transformed into a canvas for both frugality and creativity. Popular in the 1950s and 60s, it emerged in kitchens where stretching a dollar and feeding a hungry family went hand in hand. The surprise in its name often referred to the clever use of leftovers or hidden ingredients, vegetables, breadcrumbs, or even bits of cheese that were tucked inside the meatloaf, turning a simple protein base into a filling and versatile meal. The ingredients were intentionally straightforward and budget-friendly. Ground beef, or a combination of meats, onions, eggs, breadcrumbs or crackers, and seasonings. Depending on what a household had on hand, grated carrots, chopped celery, or even canned mushrooms could be folded into the mix. Some versions featured a hidden layer of cheese or hard-boiled eggs inside, giving a small aha moment when slices were cut for dinner. Topping it with a simple ketchup or tomato glaze added color, moisture, and a touch of sweetness that made the dish feel complete. Preparation was practical yet satisfying. Combine the ingredients, shape the loaf, insert your surprise fillings if desired, and bake until firm and browned. The kitchen would fill with a warm, savory aroma, a comforting signal to the family that dinner was ready. Leftovers could be sliced for sandwiches the next day, proving that Meatloaf Surprise was not just frugal, but endlessly adaptable. Today, meatloaf may feel like a retro relic, overshadowed by gourmet burgers or convenience meals, but it carries a rich story of resourcefulness and home cooking ingenuity. It's a dish that reminds us how simple ingredients, handled with care and a dash of creativity, can nourish both body and spirit. Meatloaf Surprise may have faded from modern menus, yet its legacy endures, a savory testament to the practical, inventive, and hearty cooking of generations past. Corn pudding. Corn pudding is a dish that whispers of autumn harvests, cozy kitchens, and the ingenuity of frugal home cooks. Popular in the 1930s through the 1950s, it thrived in households that prized simplicity, seasonal produce, and meals that could stretch ingredients without sacrificing flavor. Often served as a side at Sunday dinners or holiday feasts, corn pudding transformed humble corn, whether fresh, canned, or creamed, into a creamy, custardy casserole that felt comforting and special all at once. The ingredients were straightforward: corn, milk or cream, eggs to bind, a bit of sugar for sweetness, and flour or cornmeal to give structure. Butter added richness, and a pinch of salt highlighted the natural sweetness of the corn. Some cooks would stir in chopped onions, a sprinkle of cheese, or even leftover bits of cooked vegetables, proving once again that this was a dish built on resourcefulness. It was inexpensive, nourishing, and flexible, capable of adapting to what the pantry or garden could provide. Preparation was simple yet satisfying. Beat eggs with milk, fold in corn and dry ingredients, pour into a buttered baking dish, and bake until set and lightly golden on top. The kitchen would fill with the warm, sweet aroma of corn, signaling a dish that was both hearty and comforting. Served alongside roast meats or holiday ham, corn pudding became more than just a side. It was a nostalgic symbol of home and family. Though it has largely disappeared from modern dinner tables, replaced by mashed potatoes or trendy vegetable casseroles, corn pudding remains a quiet testament to practicality and taste. In an era of fast meals and instant gratifications, it reminds us that frugality and flavor can coexist, that simple ingredients, handled with care, can create a dish that warms the heart and the table alike. Its legacy endures, a creamy, golden slice of American culinary history. Hamburger hash. Hamburger hash is the quintessential mid-century weeknight dinner, simple, affordable, and endlessly adaptable. Emerging during the Depression and gaining popularity through the 1940s and 50s, it became a go-to solution for families who needed to stretch a small amount of ground beef into a hearty, filling meal. This dish thrived on practicality, making use of leftover vegetables, pantry staples, and even cold mashed potatoes to create a sizzling skillet of comfort and sustenance. At its core, hamburger hash requires very little: ground beef, onions, potatoes, and a touch of fat for frying. From there, the possibilities were endless. Chopped carrots, bell peppers, or a can of tomatoes could be tossed in. Some cooks added a splash of Worcestershire sauce or a pinch of paprika to boost flavor, while others relied on the natural richness of the meat and the sweetness of caramelized onions. The dish's charm lay in its adaptability. Nothing went to waste, and every skillet had its own story depending on the week's leftovers. Preparation was quick and practical. Dice the potatoes and sauté them with onions in a bit of oil or butter until golden and tender. Brown the ground beef separately, then combine everything in the skillet, allowing the flavors to mingle as it cooked together. The aroma of sizzling onions and meat filling the kitchen was a sure sign that dinner was nearly ready, a humble promise of warmth and satiety for the family gathered around the table. Today, hamburger hash might seem old-fashioned, overshadowed by elaborate casseroles or pre-packaged convenience meals. Yet it carries a charm that modern recipes often lack: simplicity, thrift, and flexibility. It's a dish that reminds us that comfort doesn't require complexity, that leftover ingredients can become something nourishing, and that a sizzling pan of hamburger hash is more than a meal. It's a small slice of American culinary history, steeped in practicality and nostalgia. Bean and bacon soup. Bean and bacon soup is a classic example of frugal American cooking, a dish that marries simplicity with heartiness in a way few other meals can. Popular from the early 20th century through the post-war era, it was a staple in kitchens where feeding a family on a budget required creativity and resourcefulness. This humble soup transformed inexpensive dried beans and a few strips of bacon into a flavorful, nourishing meal that could warm both the belly and the soul. The ingredients were intentionally modest: dried navy, kidney, or pinto beans, a handful of bacon or salt pork, onions, and basic seasonings like salt, pepper, and bay leaves. Some households added a splash of vinegar or a pinch of sugar to balance flavors, while others tossed in leftover vegetables for extra nutrition. Beans were soaked overnight to soften, making the soup easier to cook and digest, while the bacon lent a smoky richness that elevated even the simplest combination of ingredients. Preparation was practical and straightforward. Cook the beans until tender, sauté the bacon until crisp, and then combine everything in a pot with onions and seasonings, simmering gently until the flavors melded into a thick, satisfying broth. The smell of smoky bacon and simmering beans would fill the kitchen, signaling a meal that was both hearty and comforting. Served with a slice of buttered bread or cornbread, it became more than just a soup. It was sustenance, thrift, and tradition all in one. Today, bean and bacon soup may seem old-fashioned, overshadowed by trendy soups or instant options, yet it remains a testament to frugality, flavor, and the ingenuity of home cooks who made the most of simple ingredients. In a modern world of packaged convenience meals, this soup reminds us that patience, modesty, and a little smoke from the bacon can create something deeply satisfying. A dish that nourishes body, history, and memory all at once. Chicken and rice bake. Chicken and rice bake is the kind of dish that perfectly illustrates mid-century American practicality. A one-pan wonder that stretches a small amount of meat into a comforting, filling meal. Popular in the 1940s and 50s, it became a go-to solution for families looking to feed hungry households without breaking the budget. Its appeal lay in simplicity, adaptability, and the cozy satisfaction of a warm casserole straight from the oven. The ingredients were straightforward and inexpensive: cooked or leftover chicken, white rice, a creamy or savory sauce, often made from a can of cream of mushroom or chicken soup, onions, and a handful of seasonings. Some cooks added frozen or canned vegetables like peas, carrots, or green beans, making it both a complete meal and a clever way to use up what was on hand. Cheese or breadcrumbs could be sprinkled on top for a golden finish, turning humble pantry staples into something that looked and tasted special. Preparation was simple. Layer the rice and chicken in a baking dish, mix in the sauce and vegetables, season to taste, and bake until bubbling and golden. The kitchen would fill with a gentle, savory aroma, signaling a meal that was both hearty and satisfying. Leftovers could be reheated easily, making it a practical solution for busy weeknights or lunch boxes. Today, chicken and rice bake might seem quaint compared to modern casseroles or meal kits, yet it carries a quiet charm. It reflects a time when home cooks relied on resourcefulness, creativity, and what they had in the pantry to create a nourishing meal. In an era dominated by convenience foods and instant dinners, this simple, wholesome casserole reminds us that comfort, flavor, and frugality can coexist, and that a warm dish straight from the oven has a way of turning an ordinary night into a small celebration of family and home. Pot roast leftovers pie. Pot roast leftovers pie is a testament to mid-century American thrift and ingenuity, turning yesterday's dinner into today's delight. In households where nothing went to waste, this dish offered a clever and comforting way to repurpose leftover pot roast, vegetables, and gravy into a hearty pie that could feed a family with minimal effort. Popular from the 1940s through the 1960s, it was a favorite among home cooks who valued both economy and flavor. The ingredients were simple and flexible: shredded or chopped leftover pot roast, potatoes or other root vegetables, onions, and the rich gravy that had accompanied the roast. Some cooks added a splash of milk or beaten egg to thicken the filling, while others incorporated a bit of butter or leftover cheese for extra richness. A pie crust, homemade or store-bought, encased the filling, baking into a golden, flaky shell that held the savory treasures inside. The dish was forgiving. Any small bits of leftover vegetables or meat could find a place, making each pie slightly unique but always satisfying. Preparation was straightforward. Combine the chopped roast, vegetables, and gravy, season lightly, and spoon the mixture into a prepared pie crust. Cover with a top crust or a lattice, brush with a little milk or butter for color, and bake until golden and bubbling. The aroma of roasting crust and savory filling would fill the kitchen, drawing the family to the table. Today, pot roast leftovers pie is largely forgotten, overshadowed by trendy hand pies or frozen convenience foods. Yet it carries a charm that modern recipes often lack: resourcefulness, comfort, and the simple joy of transforming leftovers into something celebratory. In a world of instant meals and prepackaged dinners, this humble pie reminds us that creativity, thrift, and a little patience can turn even yesterday's scraps into a dish that feels special, nourishing, and rooted in family tradition. Spaghetti with pantry sauce. Spaghetti with pantry sauce is a shining example of mid-century American ingenuity, a dish born from necessity and the art of making do with whatever was on hand. During the 1940s and 50s, when fresh produce could be scarce or expensive and weeknight dinners needed to come together quickly, home cooks turned to canned tomatoes, dried herbs, and pantry staples to create a simple yet satisfying pasta sauce. It was cheap, comforting, and endlessly adaptable, a perfect solution for feeding a hungry family on a budget. The ingredients were minimal but flavorful: spaghetti, canned tomatoes or tomato paste, a clove or two of garlic if available, dried or fresh herbs like oregano and basil, and a pinch of sugar or salt to balance acidity. Some cooks stirred in a bit of leftover vegetables, a handful of chopped onion, or even a dash of Worcestershire sauce to deepen the flavor. A little grated cheese on top could transform this humble meal into something that felt celebratory, even without a trip to the market for fresh ingredients. Preparation was simple. Boil the spaghetti until tender, simmer the canned tomatoes with herbs and seasonings to create a quick sauce, and then toss the noodles in until they were coated and steaming. The kitchen would fill with a rich, comforting aroma, signaling a dinner that was satisfying, affordable, and made entirely from things already in the cupboard. Though today's tables are often dominated by store-bought jarred sauces or trendy gourmet variations, spaghetti with pantry sauce carries a quiet charm. It reflects a time when frugality and creativity went hand in hand, and when a few humble ingredients could come together to form a meal that nourished both body and spirit. In a world of convenience foods, this simple, thrifty pasta dish reminds us that sometimes the simplest meals leave the most lasting impression. Mock Salisbury steak. Mock Salisbury steak is a quintessential mid-century American comfort dish, born from the need to feed families on a budget without sacrificing flavor or heartiness. During the 1940s and 50s, when meat could be expensive and rationing was still fresh in the national memory, home cooks found clever ways to stretch ground beef into satisfying meals. This dish offered the familiar taste of a steak dinner at a fraction of the cost, making it both practical and deeply comforting. The ingredients were simple: ground beef, breadcrumbs or crackers to bulk up the meat, eggs to bind, and a few seasonings like salt, pepper, and onions. The mock element came in with the gravy, a rich, flavorful sauce often made from pan drippings, flour, and broth or milk that transformed humble meat patties into a meal worthy of a family table. Leftover vegetables or small bits of cooked meat could be folded into the patties or gravy, adding both flavor and stretch. Preparation was straightforward yet satisfying. Mix the beef with breadcrumbs, eggs, and seasonings, shape into oval patties, and brown in a skillet. Prepare the gravy in the same pan, allowing the browned bits to flavor the sauce, then return the patties to simmer until cooked through and tender. The aroma of searing meat and simmering gravy would fill the kitchen, a signal that a warm, hearty dinner was ready to nourish both body and spirit. Today, mock Salisbury steak is often viewed as a retro or even kitschy dish, overshadowed by modern burgers or gourmet meat entrees. Yet it remains a testament to resourcefulness and practical cooking, a dish that reflects a time when home cooks turned modest ingredients into something comforting, satisfying, and memorable. In an era dominated by convenience foods, it reminds us that creativity, thrift, and care in the kitchen can transform even humble meat into a beloved family meal. Bread, pudding, breakfast bake. Bread pudding breakfast bake is a delightful example of mid-century frugality meeting family-friendly indulgence. Originally a dessert, bread pudding found its way into breakfast tables across America during the 1940s and 50s. as home cooks discovered that stale bread could be transformed into a warm, custardy, and nourishing morning meal. It was a clever way to stretch leftovers, reduce waste, and still offer a comforting start to the day. The ingredients were simple and flexible: day-old bread, eggs, milk, sugar, and a touch of vanilla or cinnamon. Some households added raisins, chopped apples, or other fruit for sweetness, while others folded in a handful of nuts or a sprinkling of brown sugar for a caramelized top. Butter could be dotted on top for richness, and the entire mixture baked until golden and set. The result was a creamy, slightly sweet breakfast that felt indulgent without requiring expensive ingredients or complex techniques. Preparation was straightforward yet satisfying. Cube the bread and soak it in a mixture of beaten eggs, milk, sugar, and flavorings. Fold in any fruit or nuts, pour the mixture into a buttered baking dish, and bake until the custard has set and the top is lightly golden. The kitchen would fill with the warm, comforting aroma of baked bread and spices, a signal that breakfast was ready to gather the family. Though today, bread pudding is often relegated to dessert menus, the breakfast version carries a nostalgic charm, harkening back to an era when ingenuity and thrift guided home cooking. In an age of instant breakfasts and meal prep shortcuts, bread pudding breakfast bake reminds us that simple ingredients, handled with care, can create a meal that is both nourishing and comforting. A sweet, custardy connection to family traditions and resourceful cooking of the past. Cornmeal mush. Cornmeal mush is a humble dish with deep roots in American culinary history, a staple for families seeking nourishment on a tight budget. Dating back to colonial times and persisting through the Depression and mid-20th century, cornmeal mush was a reliable, inexpensive breakfast that turned a few simple ingredients into a filling, warm meal. Its simplicity made it accessible to households across the country, from rural farms to urban apartments. The ingredients are minimal: cornmeal, water or milk, and a pinch of salt. Some cooks added a touch of sugar or butter for sweetness and richness, while others relied on syrup, molasses, or fruit preserves to elevate the flavor at serving time. Despite its simplicity, cornmeal mush offered flexibility. It could be served soft and creamy from the pot, or allowed to cool, set, and then sliced and fried for a crispy, golden variation that added texture and appeal to breakfast tables. Preparation was straightforward. Boil water or milk, gradually whisk in the cornmeal, and cook slowly while stirring until thickened into a smooth, creamy consistency. If desired, pour into a greased pan to cool and firm for frying later. The kitchen would fill with the mild, comforting aroma of cooked corn, signaling a meal that was both hearty and economical. Though largely forgotten in modern American breakfasts, replaced by cereals and instant oatmeal, cornmeal mush remains a testament to frugality and adaptability. It illustrates a time when cooks relied on simple staples to nourish their families and make the most of what they had. In a world of ready-made convenience foods, cornmeal mush reminds us that patience, basic ingredients, and a little creativity can yield a humble yet satisfying meal. A soft, golden slice of American culinary history that is both practical and comforting. Egg and milk toast. Egg and milk toast is one of those understated breakfast dishes that speaks volumes about mid-century American ingenuity and frugality. Popular in the 1930s through the 1950s, it was a go-to meal for families who needed something quick, filling, and inexpensive. At its core, it was a simple way to transform leftover bread and a few staple ingredients into a warm, nourishing breakfast that could fuel children for school or adults for a busy workday. The ingredients were minimal: slices of bread, eggs, milk, a pinch of salt, and a bit of butter for richness. Some households added sugar or cinnamon for sweetness, while others sprinkled a little grated cheese on top for a savory twist. Leftover bread was perfect for this dish, making it a practical solution to reduce waste while creating a meal that felt comforting and satisfying. Preparation was straightforward. Beat eggs with milk and seasonings, dip the bread slices into the mixture to soak, and then fry them gently in a lightly buttered pan until golden and set. The result was soft, custardy toast with a lightly crisp exterior. A simple dish that delivered warmth and sustenance with every bite. The aroma of sizzling butter and eggs would fill the kitchen, a signal that breakfast was ready to gather the family around the table. Though egg and milk toast is largely forgotten today, replaced by cereals, smoothies, or instant breakfasts, it remains a testament to resourcefulness and the charm of simple home cooking. It reflects a time when families made do with what they had, turning modest ingredients into meals that were nourishing and satisfying. In an era of convenience foods and flashy breakfast trends, egg and milk toast reminds us that comfort, frugality, and practicality can coexist on a plate, proving that even the simplest dishes can leave a lasting impression. Pancake pockets. Pancake pockets are a playful and practical spin on traditional pancakes, a dish that reflects both frugality and creativity in mid-century American kitchens. Popular in the 1950s and 60s, these handheld treats were a clever way to turn simple batter and everyday fillings into a breakfast, or even a lunch, that was portable, filling, and appealing to children and adults alike. They were the perfect solution for families seeking variety and efficiency without spending extra money. The ingredients were simple and flexible. Basic pancake batter made from flour, eggs, milk, and a touch of sugar, with fillings ranging from leftover fruit, jam, or cinnamon sugar mixtures to bits of cooked meat or cheese for a savory twist. The beauty of pancake pockets was their adaptability. Almost anything edible could be tucked inside a pancake, creating a miniature, self-contained meal that minimized waste and maximized flavor. Preparation was straightforward but fun. Pour small circles of batter onto a hot griddle, place the filling in the center, and fold the pancake over or seal the edges lightly. Cook until golden and warm throughout, creating a soft, slightly crisp exterior that holds the filling snugly inside. The kitchen would fill with the sweet aroma of cooking batter, and the sizzle from the griddle added a comforting soundtrack to the morning routine. Today, pancake pockets may seem quaint compared to prepackaged breakfast sandwiches or trendy brunch creations, yet they carry a nostalgic charm. They reflect a time when creativity and thrift guided home cooking, turning simple ingredients into something playful and satisfying. In a modern world of convenience foods, pancake pockets remind us that resourcefulness, imagination, and a little hands-on effort can create a meal that is not only economical but also delightful. A small, tasty reminder of family-centered cooking from generations past. Glazed carrots. Glazed carrots are a simple yet elegant example of mid-century American home cooking, a dish that could elevate a humble vegetable into something special with just a few pantry staples. Popular from the 1940s through the 1960s, glazed carrots were a common side dish on family dinner tables, holiday spreads, and Sunday meals, proving that frugality and flavor could coexist beautifully. The dish's sweet, buttery finish made it appealing to children and adults alike, transforming ordinary carrots into a comforting, slightly indulgent accompaniment. The ingredients were minimal and budget-friendly. Fresh or even canned carrots, butter, a bit of sugar or brown sugar, and a pinch of salt. Some cooks added a splash of orange juice or a sprinkle of nutmeg for extra flavor, while others relied on the natural sweetness of the carrots to shine through. The simplicity of the recipe meant that even novice cooks could prepare it successfully, while the result felt polished enough to impress family or guests. Preparation was easy and satisfying. Slice or dice the carrots and simmer them gently in butter and a little water until tender. Stir in sugar and seasonings, allowing the mixture to cook down into a shiny, flavorful glaze that clung to each piece. The kitchen would fill with a warm, sweet aroma, a gentle signal that dinner was ready to be served. Though glazed carrots may seem quaint today, overshadowed by flashier vegetable preparations or convenient sides, they carry a nostalgic charm. They remind us that with a little care, humble ingredients can become something comforting and memorable. In a modern world of instant meals, glazed carrots stand as a small testament to the resourcefulness, simplicity, and flavor-conscious cooking of mid-century American kitchens, a humble side with a rich history. Creamed spinach. Creamed spinach is a timeless side dish that embodies the comforting elegance of mid-century American home cooking. Popular in the 1940s and 50s, it was often served alongside Sunday roasts, holiday meals, or simple weeknight dinners, turning an inexpensive green vegetable into a creamy, indulgent accompaniment. This dish perfectly illustrates how home cooks of the era could transform humble ingredients into something so satisfying and visually appealing, all while staying mindful of budget and pantry limitations. The ingredients were straightforward: fresh or frozen spinach, butter, milk or cream, flour for thickening, and a pinch of salt and pepper. Some households added a hint of nutmeg, onion, or a sprinkling of cheese to deepen the flavor, while others kept it simple, allowing the natural sweetness of the spinach to shine through in a silky, velvety sauce. The richness of the cream and butter elevated the dish, making it feel luxurious despite its frugality. Preparation was simple yet methodical. Cook the spinach until tender and drain any excess water. Then prepare a creamy roux with butter and flour, whisking in milk or cream until smooth. Stir in the spinach and season to taste, cooking just until the mixture thickened and the flavors melded together. The kitchen would fill with the gentle aroma of butter and greens, a subtle signal of a nourishing, comforting side ready to complement the main course. Though often overlooked in modern dining, replaced by convenience frozen sides or trendy vegetable dishes, creamed spinach remains a nostalgic favorite for those who remember it. It reflects a time when frugality and care in the kitchen went hand in hand, proving that even simple, inexpensive ingredients could be transformed into something rich, flavorful, and deeply satisfying. A dish that continues to whisper the charm of mid-century American family cooking. Rice pudding. Rice pudding is a quintessential comfort dessert, one that has warmed American kitchens for generations. Its popularity surged in the early to mid-20th century, particularly during times of economic hardship when families relied on simple, inexpensive ingredients to create something sweet and satisfying. With humble staples like rice, milk, and sugar, home cooks could produce a creamy, cozy treat that nourished both body and spirit, often serving as a dessert, snack, or even a light breakfast for children. The ingredients were simple: rice, milk, sugar, a pinch of salt, and sometimes a dash of cinnamon or nutmeg for warmth. Raisins, currants, or a splash of vanilla could be added to elevate flavor, while a pat of butter stirred in at the end added richness. Leftover cooked rice was perfect for the dish, making it an economical choice that reduced waste and maximized resources, a hallmark of mid-century cooking. Preparation was straightforward. Cook the rice slowly in milk, stirring occasionally to prevent sticking, until the grains were tender and the mixture thick and creamy. Sweeten and season to taste, then allow it to cool slightly or serve warm, sometimes topped with a sprinkle of cinnamon or a drizzle of syrup. The kitchen would fill with a gentle, sweet aroma, a comforting signal that a little indulgence was ready to be shared with the family. Though rice pudding may have fallen out of favor in modern dessert culture, replaced by cakes, cookies, or prepackaged treats, it remains a nostalgic favorite. It embodies the ingenuity and resourcefulness of home cooks, showing how simple, inexpensive ingredients could be transformed into something heartwarming and memorable. In a world dominated by instant desserts, rice pudding stands as a reminder that comfort, creativity, and frugality can coexist deliciously in a single bowl. Stuffed cabbage. Stuffed cabbage is a hearty, nostalgic dish that embodies the resourcefulness and comforting flavors of mid-century American kitchens. Popular among immigrant communities and rural households throughout the 1940s and 50s, it transformed simple, inexpensive ingredients into a meal that was both filling and flavorful. Cabbage, often abundant and cheap, became the perfect vessel for ground meat, rice, and seasonings, turning humble staples into something celebratory and satisfying for the family table. The ingredients were straightforward: cabbage leaves, ground beef or pork, cooked rice, onions, and basic seasonings like salt, pepper, and garlic. Some cooks added a touch of tomato sauce or ketchup to the filling, or simmered the rolls in a tangy tomato broth, creating a savory, slightly sweet sauce that clung to each roll. Leftover vegetables, breadcrumbs, or bits of cooked meat could also be incorporated, making it a versatile dish that minimized waste while maximizing flavor. Preparation required patience but was simple. Blanch the cabbage leaves to soften them. Prepare the meat and rice filling, and wrap portions in each leaf, tucking in the edges to seal. Arrange the rolls in a baking dish or Dutch oven, pour over tomato sauce or broth, cover, and simmer or bake until tender. The aroma of slow-cooked cabbage, onions, and meat would fill the kitchen, signaling a meal that was both hearty and comforting, a dish that nourished families on multiple levels. Though stuffed cabbage is less common today, overshadowed by convenience meals or trendy international dishes, it carries a nostalgic charm and a testament to frugality and home cooking ingenuity. It reminds us that with a few humble ingredients, care, and a little time, cooks of the past created meals that were nourishing, adaptable, and deeply satisfying, a savory legacy of American family kitchens. Homemade pickles. Homemade pickles are a timeless example of frugality, preservation, and culinary creativity in American kitchens. Popular throughout the 20th century, especially during the Depression and post-war years, pickling was a way for families to extend the bounty of summer vegetables well into the colder months. Cucumbers, a staple of backyard gardens and local markets, were transformed into tangy, crisp, and flavorful pickles that could accompany nearly any meal, providing both nourishment and a satisfying crunch. The ingredients were simple: fresh cucumbers, vinegar, water, salt, and sugar, often accompanied by pickling spices like dill, mustard seeds, garlic, or peppercorns. Families improvised with what they had, sometimes adding leftover herbs, chili flakes, or even beet juice for color. The beauty of homemade pickles lay not just in their flavor, but in their versatility. A single batch could yield a variety of tastes, from sweet and sour to garlicky and briny. Preparation was straightforward but required care. Wash and slice the cucumbers, pack them into sterilized jars, and pour over a hot brine of vinegar, water, salt, and sugar infused with spices. Seal and allow to cool, then refrigerate or process for long-term storage. The kitchen would fill with a tangy, slightly sweet aroma, a signal that a practical, flavorful preservation project was underway. Though store-bought pickles dominate shelves today, homemade versions carry a nostalgic charm and a connection to past generations. They reflect resourcefulness, patience, and the simple satisfaction of turning fresh, inexpensive produce into something lasting and delicious. In a modern world of convenience foods, homemade pickles remind us that with a little effort everyday ingredients can become a vibrant, flavorful accompaniment that preserves not just vegetables, but also the traditions and ingenuity of American home cooking. Baked beans. Baked beans are a quintessential comfort food and a symbol of practicality and tradition in mid-century American kitchens. Popular from the early 20th century through the 1950s and 60s, they were a staple at family dinners, church suppers, and backyard cookouts, providing a hearty, inexpensive source of protein and flavor. Their appeal lay in simplicity, shelf-stable ingredients, and the ability to feed a crowd without breaking the household budget. The ingredients were straightforward: dried or canned beans, salt pork or bacon, molasses or brown sugar for sweetness, and a few basic seasonings such as mustard, onions, or black pepper. Some households added a splash of ketchup or tomato sauce to enrich the flavor, while others relied solely on the caramelized sweetness of sugar and molasses. The dish thrived on slow cooking, allowing flavors to meld and beans to absorb the smoky, sweet, and savory elements of the sauce. Preparation required a bit of time but was simple in execution. Soak the beans overnight if using dried, then simmer with the pork or bacon, sweeteners, and seasonings until tender. Transfer to a baking dish or bean pot and bake slowly, letting the sauce thicken and caramelize around the beans. The kitchen would fill with a warm, sweet, savory aroma, signaling a dish that was both hearty and satisfying. Though modern households often reach for canned or instant versions, traditional baked beans remain a nostalgic favorite, reflecting resourcefulness, patience, and the art of turning simple ingredients into something flavorful and sustaining. In a world of convenience foods and pre-packaged sides, baked beans remind us that slow-cooked, humble ingredients can create meals that nourish, comfort, and connect us to the history of American home cooking, a rich, sweet, and smoky taste of tradition. Jell-O mold. The Jell-O mold is perhaps one of the most iconic symbols of mid-century American kitchens, a dish that combines whimsy, creativity, and the frugality of family cooking in a single, wobbly form. Rising to popularity in the 1950s and 60s, Jell-O molds were a staple at potlucks, holiday dinners, and Sunday suppers, where their bright colors, geometric shapes, and playful inclusions of fruit or vegetables made them both eye-catching and budget-friendly. They were a way for home cooks to turn inexpensive ingredients into a centerpiece-worthy dish that delighted children and adults alike. The ingredients were simple: flavored gelatin, water, and sugar, often supplemented with canned fruit, marshmallows, or even chopped vegetables for texture and visual appeal. Some adventurous cooks layered different colors, added whipped cream, or incorporated fruit juices to create swirls and patterns. The dish was flexible and forgiving, allowing each household to put its own spin on the mold depending on what was available in the pantry. Preparation was straightforward but required patience. Dissolve the gelatin in hot water, stir in sugar and any desired additions. Pour into a mold and chill until fully set. Unmolding the creation revealed a glistening, colorful centerpiece that shimmered on the dinner table. The process was as much about creativity and presentation as it was about taste. The sweet, jiggly dessert brought a sense of delight and celebration to everyday meals. Though largely seen as retro or even kitschy today, the Jell-O mold is a nostalgic reminder of mid-century ingenuity in the kitchen. It reflects a time when presentation, economy, and fun coexisted, and when a simple, inexpensive dessert could become a memorable highlight of a meal. In an era dominated by convenience desserts and Instagram-ready creations, the Jell-O mold reminds us that whimsy, practicality, and creativity have always had a place at the family table. Rice Krispies treats. Rice Krispies treats are a classic example of mid-century American ingenuity in the kitchen, a sweet snack that combines simplicity, affordability, and a touch of fun. Introduced in the 1930s and gaining popularity in the decades that followed, these treats became a staple for children's parties, school lunches, and family gatherings. They transformed just a few humble pantry ingredients into a chewy, crispy delight that could be made in minutes and enjoyed by all ages. The ingredients were minimal: Rice Krispies cereal, marshmallows, and butter. Sometimes a pinch of vanilla or a sprinkling of chocolate chips would be added for extra flavor, but the core recipe was astonishingly simple. The charm of Rice Krispies treats lay in their accessibility. No oven was required, and even novice cooks could produce a snack that looked and tasted like a small celebration. Leftover marshmallows or cereal could easily be incorporated, making the dish economical as well as fun. Preparation was quick and satisfying. Melt the butter and marshmallows together in a pot until smooth. Stir in the cereal until evenly coated and press the mixture into a buttered pan to set. Once cooled, the result was a sweet, airy, chewy treat with a delightful crunch, a texture that became instantly recognizable and deeply nostalgic. The kitchen would fill with the warm, sweet aroma of melted marshmallows, signaling a snack that brought joy to both children and adults alike. Though now often seen as a retro or novelty treat, Rice Krispies treats remain a testament to the creativity and resourcefulness of mid-century home cooks. They show how a few simple ingredients, handled with care and imagination, could produce a snack that was economical, fun, and delicious, a small, sweet reminder of the comforting simplicity of American kitchens past. Dirt cake. Dirt cake is a playful, nostalgic dessert that became a staple of mid-20th century American kitchens, especially for family gatherings, potlucks, and children's parties. With its whimsical layers and clever presentation, it transformed simple, inexpensive ingredients into a dessert that felt festive and fun. Popular from the 1950s onward, dirt cake perfectly illustrates the era's knack for turning pantry staples into something visually striking and delightfully indulgent. The ingredients were simple: crushed chocolate cookies for dirt, instant pudding or custard mix, milk, cream cheese or butter for richness, and whipped topping for a fluffy, creamy layer. Gummy worms or chocolate candies were often added on top, completing the playful illusion of a garden patch or a dirt-filled sandbox. The dish required no baking, making it a quick and easy treat for busy home cooks, yet the layered textures and sweet flavors gave it a sense of effort and celebration. Preparation was fun and forgiving. Mix the pudding and milk until smooth, fold in cream cheese or butter for richness, and layer it with crushed cookies and whipped topping in a dish or individual cups. Chill until set, then garnish with gummy worms or candy rocks. The resulting dessert was creamy, sweet, and texturally delightful, with the chocolatey crunch of cookie crumbs contrasting the smooth, fluffy pudding. Though dirt cake may now be viewed as a kitschy or retro treat, it carries a nostalgic charm that speaks to creativity, frugality, and the joy of playful presentation. It reflects a time when home cooks could turn simple, inexpensive ingredients into a crowd-pleasing dessert that delighted children and adults alike. In a modern world of fancy desserts and gourmet confections, dirt cake reminds us that imagination, accessibility, and a sense of fun can make even the humblest ingredients memorable and delicious. Shoe fly pie. Shoe fly pie is a humble, sweet treat with roots in Pennsylvania Dutch kitchens, a dish that embodies frugality, tradition, and homey comfort. Popular from the late 19th century through the mid-20th century, it earned its quirky name from the persistent flies that were drawn to the sticky, molasses-rich filling during baking. Far from being just a novelty, shoe fly pie became a beloved staple in American households, prized for its affordability, simplicity, and satisfying sweetness. The ingredients were straightforward and budget-friendly: molasses, brown sugar, flour, eggs, and a touch of baking soda or soda water, often combined with a crumbly topping made from butter, flour, and sugar. Some variations added milk or cream for a custardy texture, but the essence of the pie lay in the deep, rich sweetness of molasses, which was inexpensive and widely available. It was a dessert that stretched pantry staples into something indulgent, perfect for feeding families without overspending. Preparation was simple, though precise timing mattered. Mix the wet ingredients with the dry to create a thick, spiced batter. Pour it into a prepared crust and top with a crumb mixture if desired. Bake until the filling set and the top achieves a caramelized finish. The kitchen would fill with a warm, sweet aroma that hinted at the molasses' rich depth, a comforting signal that dessert was ready to be enjoyed with family. Though shoe fly pie is less common today, overshadowed by modern desserts and sugary treats, it remains a testament to resourcefulness and tradition in home baking. Its simple ingredients and rustic charm remind us that even the humblest of pantry staples, treated with care and imagination, can become something deeply satisfying and enduring. A sweet slice of American culinary history that carries both flavor and nostalgia. Apple Brown Betty. Apple Brown Betty is a classic American dessert that epitomizes the homey, frugal cooking of the mid-20th century. Often served during fall harvest or holiday dinners, it was a favorite in households that valued simple, comforting ingredients stretched to their fullest potential. The dish is a layered baked pudding of sweetened apples and breadcrumbs, or crushed crackers, lightly spiced with cinnamon or nutmeg, creating a warm, fragrant dessert that was both satisfying and economical. The ingredients were straightforward and budget-friendly: tart apples, sugar, butter, cinnamon, and breadcrumbs or cracker crumbs to add texture and bulk. Leftover bread was often used, turning what might have gone to waste into a golden, caramelized topping that contrasted beautifully with the soft, tender apples beneath. Some cooks added a splash of lemon juice to brighten the flavor, or a touch of nutmeg or allspice for warmth, making each family recipe slightly unique. Preparation was simple yet rewarding. Layer the apple slices with sugar and spices, sprinkle breadcrumbs in between layers, dot with butter, and bake until the fruit is tender and the topping golden brown. The kitchen would fill with the cozy aroma of baked apples and cinnamon, signaling a dessert that was both comforting and celebratory. Served warm, often with a scoop of vanilla ice cream or a drizzle of cream, it became a treat that felt indulgent despite its humble ingredients. Though Apple Brown Betty is less commonly seen on modern tables, overshadowed by pies and trendy desserts, it remains a testament to the resourcefulness and creativity of home cooks. It demonstrates that simple ingredients, handled with care, can create a dish that warms the heart and satisfies the appetite. In an era of instant desserts, Apple Brown Betty reminds us that frugality and flavor can coexist beautifully. A sweet, nostalgic slice of American culinary history. Mock chocolate fudge. Mock chocolate fudge is a nostalgic sweet treat that embodies mid-century American ingenuity, creating the indulgence of chocolate fudge without the expense of large amounts of cocoa or chocolate. Popular in the 1940s and 50s, especially during times of economic restraint, this dessert allowed families to enjoy a rich, sweet confection using pantry staples and a bit of creativity. It was inexpensive, easy to prepare, and perfect for holidays, potlucks, or simply satisfying a chocolate craving at home. The ingredients were simple and resourceful: sugar, butter, milk, and a small amount of cocoa or chocolate flavoring, sometimes enhanced with vanilla extract or a pinch of salt. Some versions incorporated marshmallows, nuts, or even evaporated milk to enrich the texture and flavor. The recipe was forgiving, allowing cooks to adjust sweetness or thickness based on preference and what ingredients were on hand, making it a perfect example of adaptable, frugal home cooking. Preparation was straightforward. Melt butter and sugar together, stir in milk and cocoa until smooth, and cook gently until thickened. Remove from heat, flavor with vanilla, fold in extras like nuts or marshmallows, then pour into a buttered pan to set. Once cooled, the fudge could be sliced into squares, revealing a rich, creamy texture that belied its humble ingredients. The kitchen would fill with the warm, sweet aroma of chocolate and sugar, a signal that a special treat was ready to enjoy. Though mock chocolate fudge may now feel retro or quaint compared to modern gourmet confections, it remains a nostalgic favorite. It reflects the creativity, resourcefulness, and simple pleasures of mid-century home cooking, proving that even modest ingredients, treated with care and imagination, could create something indulgent, comforting, and memorable. A sweet testament to thrift, ingenuity, and timeless flavor. And there you have it, 30 dirt-cheap American classics that have mostly disappeared from our tables. Which one brought back memories for you, or are you tempted to try one for the first time? Share your thoughts in the comments, hit like if you enjoyed this nostalgic trip, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories and recipes straight from the kitchens of the past.